Hi, everybody. Welcome to Not the News. It looks a little different around here, doesn't it, Nikki?
Can we talk about Neil Oren making this all fancy?
It is kind of cool, yeah. So we got some new equipment, and it's about half installed. So it's going to get better than this. We're going to lose the phones. We're going to get real professional cameras in here. The lighting is better right now.
I'm blown away right now.
You love it?
We need to get a full studio shot so we can
Show everything's going on.
I'm so proud of you.
And the picture behind us?
Oh yeah.
That is a painting, original painting by Jay Jackson, who is
Our
friend Jay, who's one of our first interviews.
Yes.
And that is the actual sound wave of I Love You. And he gifted that to me when he moved a while back, and it's a cherished piece of my collection.
Well, he's so talented in so many ways.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
He's terrific.
We need to have him back.
We do.
Yeah.
And he will be back. So anyway, we start this week with, when we first started this thing, you start thinking about who are the guests I want to interview, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go through your list and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point you're like, who are the guests that people watching this might find most fascinating?
Because it's not necessarily like, of course we want to have like Jelly Roll on.
Yeah.
But like everybody wants to have Jelly Roll on.
Well, I mean, but yes, just because he's a familiar face to all of us there. But when you actually have someone with knowledge and with this, just an index, a connector of people, basically.
Those are the ones that whenever I'm listening to podcasts, I always go to.
Right. So the incredible thing is that our guest today is one of the first people I met in Nashville. We met down at Tootsie's, became fast friends. And we've lived a life together to this point.
We want to talk about all that.
And we're going to talk about some about that, right?
Yeah.
But the reason I love him so much is what he's done with his career. And what he's doing right now with his career is absolutely fascinating. So without further ado,
Here he is.
Here he is, my buddy Mitch Ballard. Mitch, welcome.
No, thank you. It's great to be here. Nikki, I haven't seen you in a while.
In a minute, right?
So happy to see you walk in and to see pictures of baby girl Finley. I cannot believe she's about to be 3.
Oh, gosh, she's growing so fast.
Oh, my gosh.
Absolutely precious. And she's
Are you obsessed?
I am. She's a little daredevil, too. She likes climbing up on things. And
Love that.
No fear. No fear whatsoever.
She is. The moment when she was born, she looked like a American doll, an American Girl doll or something like that. She's just such a beautiful little child, and she continues that way. But now now the personality's coming in,
right?
And it's all getting fun now.
Thankfully, she gets her looks from her mother.
Well, sometimes she gets some big words from Dad, right?
Oh,
sometimes in the back of that truck, they hear more than you want.
Right, exactly.
That's okay. That's okay.
I've had to adjust my music business vocabulary.
Oh, I bet.
I want to talk when you originally came to Nashville.
Wait, tell people who you are, what you do.
Well, okay.
We're
gonna try to get there in different ways right now. But all right, I like that actually. Mitch, you're down at BMI in Texas. What are you doing down there?
So I am the executive director of the BMI office in Texas, and we are based in Austin. I'm a native Texan, moved here right out of college in 1992 to work in the music business, and lived here 27 years. So I have deep roots here in Nashville. And I was looking for a strategic move back to Texas to get closer to family.
Yeah.
And saw the press release that BMI was opening the office down there. I'm like, this is perfect. And I worked with all of the BMI offices. There's 8 offices, but I worked the closest with the Nashville office. So, what I do, we're strictly a creative office in Austin. So I'm day-to-day relations with the songwriters down there. So it's everything from someone just getting started, has a lot of questions, wants to understand more about what, BMI does. BMI is a performance rights organization. We are in our 86th year of business, and I love telling people in Texas that Willie Nelson's been with us 66 years.
Wow, that's a bragging right.
Right.
I've never heard one.
I hope his son's with you guys too. I mean, you
the
better
whole,
be. Yeah,
the whole family.
Yeah, okay, good.
Paula
Make sure about
and
that.
Amy, all of them. And so, it started out tracking radio and TV performances of songs. And nowadays, streaming, if you go on TikTok and pick a song, if you get on your Peloton and pick music, all of that data gets sent back to us and our 2 main competitors. And we collect those royalties and distribute them to the people who wrote the songs.
The true artists in some case, right?
Yeah. And sometimes they sing their own songs, like we represent Taylor Swift and Pink and Lainey Wilson, Jelly Roll, Eric Church, etc. But as you all know, like especially here in Nashville and LA and New York, oftentimes you have people that are just songwriters. They're not artists, they're not trying to be. But down in Texas, it's a little bit different. There's a whole music ecosystem down there, and pretty much everybody I work with is also a performing artist, as well. So maybe somebody starting out, somebody that's emerging, all the way to somebody who's reached, major status. Like I work with Parker McCollum, Co Wetzel, people like that, and emerging artists that are getting signed to record deals like Braxton Keith, Tom Myers, Hudson Westbrook. I affiliated Tom Myers with BMI when he was 15.
Wow.
You don't realize how big Texas country has gotten until you start hearing Mitch talk about some of the people that he's representing and serving with this. But we always joke when he first got this job, he's like, he's been in Nashville training for this job for the last 27 years because it was like a job that was just built for him.
It was made, when you're talking is what I'm hearing, because you also came to Nashville to be a songwriter.
Right.
So now you're able to mentor these young songwriters. I'm sure that the knowledge that you bring them is just invaluable.
Well, and they really like the fact that, I'm a musician. I played in
You're not
bands.
just a suit.
Right.
And I write songs. I've had a lot of them say, man, we really love that you've been in the trenches, yourself. And, I've had songs cut. I haven't had a hit yet.
Jeannie Seeley cut one of your songs not too long ago and played it at the Opry while we were standing there watching. It was probably one of the more incredible experiences I've had in Nashville. It's like hearing your buddy's song, Jeannie Seeley singing it.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
It was really cool, and that night as well. I'd gotten to play the Opry about a dozen times when I worked with B.J. Thomas, but my parents were still working. They weren't retired yet. And so they got to come that night, and I played with Gary P. Nunn, who's a very, very well-known songwriter and artist in Texas. And so I played guitar with him, and then Jeannie Seeley sang a song that I wrote. So they got to see, both, which was really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of a bucket list moment if I've ever heard one.
Yeah.
It was, you were out and you were with BJ for many years, and he was good to you and you were good to him. I mean, it was a great partnership, right?
Yeah, so we were almost 8 years together, and, we became like family.
Yeah. When you first got here, and you got here, you were going to be an artist too, right? I mean, you had that. No, it wasn't really. Okay.
No,
I get the head shake, but you had that look. He was a tall Texan whose hair went down to his back. He wore a cowboy hat, and I used to joke that he didn't need hangers for his jeans because they'd stand up on their own, but they were so perfectly pressed,
They're
right?
So Texan.
It was all Texas.
I
but
love
I
that.
got to get those starched jeans.
and
And I quit wearing my hat because I'd walk around. People go, "Oh, you an artist?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"No."
Yeah.
And they say, "Well, you dress like one." I'm like, "No, I'm from Texas. We all dress like one."
Yeah, you literally right.
So if my dream, if my hat trick would have happened, it would be to be a hit songwriter, produce hit records on other artists, and work at a record label. That was really kind of what I was.
You're close.
That was my dream, and
You still get to dabble in it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I get to dabble in it.
Yeah.
And I produced some records on B.J. Thomas that Curb put out, and still on the highway. I've just changed lanes a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so what were you saying before when I interrupted you, and what were you getting towards?
Toward what?
In the beginning, when I said...
No, I was just going to go back those 30 years when we first got to town here, and it was a small group of people that kind of became fast friends, right? And it was, when you meet Mitch, you meet everyone in town, right? Because he'll come up and he'll not only know the artist who did a certain song, he'll know the backup musicians, he'll know the producers, the engineers, and he has this way when he meets someone, and it takes a couple minutes before he's already in their world talking about their ecosystem in a way that makes them very comfortable. And when you can break the ice with someone like that probably doesn't get a chance to talk about the really detailed stuff of the business, that's who he is. And so we would, when we first got to town, I mean, I had a front row seat to everything in Nashville because of him.
Yeah.
and going out in the boat in Percy Priest Lake and hear an old country song by one of the original singers of the song. I mean, it's like just stuff like that you just never forget, right?
No, we had some, we made some fast friends and some legends like Bobby Hardin, who wrote Too Cold at Home and Old Country for Mark Chestnut, a bunch of hits for Loretta Lynn, sang background vocals on Amarillo by Morning, all these other hit songs. And then Herschel Wigington, who was on Hee Haw.
Yeah.
And, Herschel and Bobby kind of became our Nashville dads. And they had houseboats next to each other at Elm Hill Marina, and I lived on that side of town.
They were our Nashville dads.
Neil was out in Nashboro Village, so we were right there.
Yeah.
I lived off of Stewart's Ferry Pike, and so we go hang out with those guys, and we had a lot of sitting in the middle of Percy Priest Lake at midnight with guitars, singing songs, and having a great time. It was a lot of fun.
And Herschel's voice, when he would sing, and it was perfectly silent, right? And it would just give you chills when he's singing, Too Cold at Home,
Yeah, he was baritone voice.
Baritone voice was just absolutely, it was phenomenal.
Sang on so many hit records, and, Garth Brooks and Dolly Parton and, George Strait, et cetera, et cetera. He's, just legendary background vocalist and sang on hundreds of hits.
How did you two meet?
Well, there used to be a reporter here named Michael Turco. He was kind of an investigative type of reporter. He's one of the consumer advocate reporters, and we got hired at Channel 2 about the same time. And in the 1910s, yeah, it was way before TV. Actually, they were just coming up with the concept.
Back last century.
Funny.
Especially, you're such a pioneer.
Well, I did go to the University of Denver, pioneers. So anyway, so Turco asked me to go down and meet a buddy of his that you met just through music, right? He jumped in the music scene right when he got here because he now is a luthier. He builds guitars.
So I got a call. MTSU had a student TV station, and I got a call from an artist manager going, "Hey, they want a songwriter to come in and play a song on their, music show." And I got there, and there's this, I just started seeing Turco on TV, and there he is. And we start talking. He's from Texas, had gone to UT and, University of Texas in Austin.
I was going to say, you need to clarify.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
The UT, okay?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Number 2.
Technically Tennessee's older, so, and I know Texans like to, UT Austin alum love to debate that, but the facts are facts.
Facts are facts.
We were a state before y'all were a university.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay, I digress.
So, met Turco. We hit it off, and he said, "Man, we need to get together." And so I called the station a couple days later, and, we started hanging out. We started going to Dancing in the District on Thursdays.
Oh, my gosh.
And so
it used to be called something else there, Mitch. Remember that? Drinking in the District.
Exactly.
It was just an excuse, right?
There, Neil.
Right.
And so Turco called and said, "Hey, we doing Dancing in the District?" I'm like, "Yeah." So we'd always meet at Tootsie's, have a beer or two, and then walk down. And he goes, "Hey, just hired a weekend weatherman, and do you mind if he joins us?"
He's a big loser. We need to show him around.
You need
I
to
feel
get him
bad
out.
for this
Right.
guy.
Yeah, that's actually about right.
Found a stray puppy, and
Yeah.
don't mind if we feed him. So, and the rest is history, and we have. He
Forgot his ID that night, right?
Yeah, I'd gone through the drive-thru at Bank of America, and they didn't return my ID, so Neil had to buy my beers, and for first couple of days we were friends. He thought I was underage.
I did, actually. I really did. I was like, I just got swindled in that.
Oh.
But yeah, and then usually the nights ended up at Skull's Rainbow Lounge, which it was when Skull Schulman was there. And I used to love and we're going to talk about artists and your advice to artists, just get into this stuff and songwriters. But Mitch would write Skull a check and post-date it for a few days, and Skull would cash it for him. And it was just kind of like he was your bank. He was your
my line of credit.
Your line of credit.
Is so funny.
Oh, he was. Skull was great.
Yeah.
Wow.
He became a great friend, and miss seeing Skull.
It was absolutely, when you walked into Skull's Rainbow Lounge, it was 8x10 pictures of him with every single artist and star, and he's always wearing his Hee Haw overalls right there.
Yeah, he was one of the cast of characters on Hee Haw.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that I missed that like generation of
Well, and it was just one of those things, Nikki, you never knew who was going to walk into that.
Right.
There was usually just 2 tables taken at Skulls, and you never know who was going to be at the other table. And Mitch and I would,
it was always kneeling.
it was always kind of fun, right?
Oh yeah, we'd walk in and
See Angie at the bartender, and then
the bartender walked in there one night, and there was a movie being filmed here in town at the old prison on the west side of Nashville, and there was James Gandolfini, and this was right when Sopranos were getting big, and one of the other big actors sitting in Skulls drinking a beer.
Yeah.
We walk in, and it was the place where you went.
Casual.
Downtown wasn't what back then isn't what it is now, and
Yeah.
the town has changed a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's wonderful for the city's economy and for the economy of country music. I mean, here we are, and at this taping, I'm in town for CMA Music Fest that starts tomorrow. Used to be Fanfare, and I went to my first Fanfare in 1993, and have been to almost every one of them since then. And to see the growth has been absolutely incredible.
Right.
And it says so much for the Nashville music industry, and to also see the town get bigger and more attractive to other genres. You have rock stars that live here, you have pop stars that have houses here, and so it became not just a country music town anymore.
And not just musicians. I mean, this is where like actors and actresses are calling it. Yeah, it's attractive to
exactly.
everyone.
So, traffic's worse, and there's more buildings and such, but I really like what Nashville, when I moved here in 1992, it felt like a sleepy town. And now it's this bustling metropolis, and I love it. We'll go to CMA Music Fest tomorrow, and it's going to be bigger every year.
Yeah. You work with some pretty great people over at BMI. These are some of the top people in this entire industry, and I've got to know a few of them through you. But just talk about the leadership over at that place and what drives it. It's pretty amazing when you hear about the people that are behind it.
There's Clay Bradley is the vice president, in Nashville.
And the Bradley name, right? Okay.
Yeah.
His grandfather's Owen Bradley. His father's Jerry Bradley. His uncle's Harold Bradley. They're all 3 in the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Wow.
His stepmother ran ASCAP, which was a BMI competitor.
Wow.
Very, very deep roots, and his son and daughter are making names. I think his daughter's in the music business. His son definitely works with Post Malone and people like that. And that Bradley generations just keep moving. And
it's incredible.
Mason Hunter.
Yeah.
Who is the assistant vice president, who I report to directly. He's a rock star. He works with Robert Earl Keen and Eric Church and all these amazing artists. And, then there's, the New York and LA offices and such. And there's Samantha Cox in New York. She signed Lady Gaga when she was, I think, a senior in high school. And Tracy Verlinde and Barbara Kane in LA, these, Catherine in Atlanta, and that have been with BMI 25, 30 years, and they work with the biggest stars, in music. And it's interesting watching, how they work. I learned a lot from them.
So do you work with Taylor Swift?
I don't work directly with her, no.
Gosh.
But he went down and Texas, it wasn't forgotten about, but there was a lot of artists down there that needed to be served and have direct contact, and so when you went down there, it was your mission just to get out and meet every single person that you possibly could in Texas, in the Texas music business. And for people that think Texas is just Texas country, you're sadly mistaken. You're sadly mistaken.
Well, there's Destiny's Child, there's St. Vincent, there's Post Malone, there's Khalid, there's ZZ Top, going back even further. There's and currently there's Black Pumas, who are just absolutely exploding all around the world.
Yeah.
They're touring the world and such. And BMI's been going back and forth to Austin since the early 70s.
Absolutely, yeah.
1973-ish or so. I've got some black and white pictures on the wall in my office of when BMI came down, Roger Sovine, Francis Preston and such, did a music conference in 73, 74.
Yeah.
So I have these old pictures. But, they really felt it was time to have a day-to-day presence there, because what you end up doing is you cultivate relationships early on.
Yeah.
It's getting the call from Michael Myers, who I was acquainted with, and know his father-in-law and his uncle-in-law very well. And he goes, hey, man, I need to bring my son in. He's got a song that's blown up on TikTok. So being there day to day, Zeb Luster, here in Nashville, found Hudson Westbrook, who was out in West Texas. And he calls me. He goes, hey, we need to get him signed up with BMI. And Hudson Westbrook is killing it now. Wow. But it's like, hey, we found this artist in Texas. We need to call the BMI office there.
Do you generally have an idea when you first see these people of the potential, the upside, or are you surprised often?
I'm not surprised too often, because I've been doing this for so long.
Yes.
But also, I've learned that just because there's an artist that doesn't connect with me, doesn't mean they won't connect with the artist. I have that music business side of my brain instead of music fan and consumer.
Yeah.
And I go, I'm not crazy about them. I'm not going to get in the truck and listen to them. But wow, they're great on stage. They're dynamic. They're, and I look at that business side of it, because you walk down the street, and everybody does not like exactly the same artist, So I just like identifying these artists, and especially the ones that have that X factor, that you can't teach them.
Give them a shot.
Yeah. Tell us who recently you have seen with that X factor.
Tom Myers, the first time I saw him.
Yeah, he had it.
Yeah.
How old is he?
He will be 18, I believe.
He's not even 18.
So, and he
I
writes.
think it's July. It's either June or July. But
And he's a performer and a songwriter. He
Yes.
does both.
Oh yeah, yeah.
he's selling thousands of tickets now and traveling all around the country, and he's dynamic on stage. He has a thing that you can't learn.
Yeah.
I tell people, especially people that aren't in the music business, that go, hey, what do you look for? And I said, it's usually what you feel. Mm-hmm. And I said, because, just because you're a great singer, I said, we could go to any church in Texas on Sunday, and there's going to be somebody that has a great voice singing hymns. That doesn't mean they're a star.
Yeah.
And there's that X factor. It just makes you feel something versus, oh, they sound great.
How does someone who's going to turn 18 write songs with like more depth than someone who's been writing songs their whole life, right?
Really?
How does that happen?
Yeah, he's an old soul.
Yeah.
And, that's just something that's that X factor that's in him.
Yeah.
That it would take another writer that didn't have that X factor as much, it'd take them 20 years to have those life experiences to write the songs like that.
I want to know about Texas country because Neil's kind of taught me a little bit about it. And I, please tell me if I'm wrong, but what I've gathered from Texas country, it feels very 90s country in a positive, that's like a good thing.
A compliment, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it
Sounds more country.
Yes, and it's the country that I grew up with. Is that Texas country? What is Texas country?
No, Texas, well, what you're hearing with the new artists.
Like Zach Top. Like, I love Zach Top.
Zach's incredible.
Yeah.
He's a Washington State guy. And I, work with Zach. He started playing the circuits down in Texas. So what you're hearing with that 90s, resurgent sound, really is because you have kids, and I say kids, they're not kids.
20, you can say kids.
Yeah.
25, years old, 30 years old. That was pre-iPods when you had to sit and listen in the car to whatever your parents were listening to. And the parents were listening to 90s country because it's like 1999, 2000, 2001, and their kids are born, and they're sitting in the back of the car, just like we did growing up.
My dad used to put it on the AM radio driving to school, and that's, and it programs you, right? It's the beat, the sound, it's the tone, everything about it. It's the songs that tell stories. It's the songs with purpose, and Texas does that, right? That's what I see in Texas country.
It has different iterations over the decades. In the early to mid 70s, it was the cosmic country. It was a bunch of hippies that moved to Austin. Jerry Jeff Walker, Gary P. Nunn, Michael Martin Murphy, the B.W. Stevenson. And I mean, when B.W. Stevenson had his hit with My Maria, he was in Austin.
Wow.
Michael Martin Murphy, Wildfire, he was still living in Austin.
Yeah.
So there was great music, but it wasn't mainstream, country. It just had a little thing to it. And they coined it cosmic country. And then, in the 80s came Robert Earl Keen and Lyle Lovett, and they we're just a little bit different as songwriters and artists.
Yeah.
And it's a cool factor, I like to think. And, then came, right around 2000 or so came, Pat Green, Corey Morrow, Kevin Fowler, Cross Canadian Ragweed. You had this merge. You had these two sounds merging. There was the Oklahoma sound, and there was a Texas sound. And, the Red River separates the two states because the dirt up there is red. So they started calling it Texas Red Dirt. And if you've never heard, if you're listening to this and you've never heard of Texas Red Dirt, go Google the boys from Oklahoma. Back in April, in Stillwater at D. Boone Pickens Stadium on the OSU campus, there was Cross Canadian Ragweed, Jason Boland, I'm pulling a blank now. There's about
You've already mentioned 6,000 names in this podcast, Mitch.
Yeah.
So you're allowed to draw one blank, okay?
I'm
You're
blown
allowed.
away.
You're okay.
Great Divide was there, and there was a
Here you
whole
go.
group. They put tickets on sale. Football stadium sold out. They put a second night, sold out. Third night, sold out. They sold out 4 nights in a football stadium like a George Strait does, like a Kenny Chesney does. They did 4 nights in a row, and that is the power of that music scene in Texas and Oklahoma. And, you had Wade Bowen and Randy Rogers, and this was, that next generation. And then came Parker McCollum, Co Wetzel, and that group. And, I'm seeing now a group that's going to be the next thing. They're 5-6 years out. But they'll be selling a lot of tickets, and they're going to be the next group that get record deals in Nashville.
Well, I was just going to ask how is that translating to? Would you say Nashville's more mainstream country?
Yeah, mainstream country radio, exactly.
Do they all transfer and translate into mainstream Nashville country, or do some of them just sit happily in red dirt?
That's a great question, actually.
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's both. But what the advantage is of, especially in Texas, is there is a whole ecosystem and a live music culture. It goes back to the early 1800s when there was an influx of German settlers that came into a port, Indianola, between Galveston and Corpus Christi, and they all went to the hill country of Texas. And they promised them fertile lands and lush greenery and everything, which the Texas hill country is not. And they left out the fact that there were angry Comanches there as well.
Right.
And so it was tough when the Germans got there. And they started building social halls. And they would have monthly gatherings. And the farmers and the ranchers would compare notes. They'd have food. They'd have music. And the Germans started, Germans are a very social culture.
They're a good time.
Yeah, they're a good time. They want,
They're a good time.
Yeah, they are.
I was sitting with Governor Abbott a couple of months ago, just catching him up on what the BMI office has done. We were talking about, the German influx and such, and he goes, yeah, they want to, eat food and drink beer and play music.
My
And that's
kind of
exactly
people.
right. It's social.
Yeah.
And there were already Mexicans living there, very social people that love food, love music, love dancing, all these things. So these social halls, if you look at them, not all of them are there anymore, but if you look where they were and the ones that are still there, they're all 8-9 miles apart. I can leave my house. I live out in the hill country, about 45 miles outside of Austin, and kind of like the Leapers Fork.
Okay.
It's a beautiful,
Austin,
it's a beautiful spot. It's a
little
beautiful
town called
spot.
Wimberley. Live right outside of Wimberley. But there's Fisher Hall, and if you've ever watched Honeysuckle Rose, the Willie Nelson movie, there's one of the first scenes, very early in the movie. They're at this dance hall having a family reunion, and Willie's on stage singing. That was Fisher Hall. About 8-9 miles away is Twin Sisters Dance Hall. Mm-hmm. Then
Is that where we saw Gary P?
No, we saw him at Albert Dance Hall.
You're going to get to Albert.
Yep. So you go from there, you go one direction, there's Candelia and Anhalt. You go the other way, there's Sisterdale, then there's Albert, there's Lukenbach, there's Grapetown.
These are all dance halls.
And Green.
Yep. And they're all 8 or 9 miles apart, so you could ride your horse or take your buggy. And then, of course, cars now. But so they were very close, and they really turned more into dance halls, you know, in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Meanwhile, mid 1800s, there was a huge influx of Czech and Polish immigrants that came into Indianola. They had heard that the hill country wasn't as great as everybody said it was in Europe, so they just kind of went straight northeast into the coastal plains. And so you have this line, there's like, in all these towns through the hill country, there's New Braunfels, you know, Fredericksburg and Schulenburg, there's all these towns that are German names. And then the Czechs and Polish came in and they settled in the coastal plains and they started building social halls. And that stretches from New Braunfels almost to Houston, basically to Sealy. So you had this network. So you start a band, you had places to play.
Yeah.
And the culture of live music and dancing is ingrained in the history of Texas. You know, you come here, Tennessee, Kentucky, you know, the Carolinas, Virginias, we're all settled by English, Irish, and Scottish. I mean, they're still fighting in Ireland. And they're clannish people, and that's just their culture.
Yeah.
So you don't have that in other parts of the country. You know, the immigrants that came in, the settlers just came from different cultures.
Right.
So we had this explosion of Czech, German, Polish, Mexican, who are all about music, food, beer, dancing.
Socializing.
And it became a culture down there. I mean, as a little kid, you know, the dance halls were come one, come all. They'd be age 9 to 90 there. And, you know.
What a beautiful thing.
I went to the dance halls as kids. And when it got later in the evening, they typically had
chairs around the outside,
all around the, you know, on the outside of and we would crawl up on a bench and go to sleep, and next thing you know, you wake up and you're home.
True story. And he'll be telling me these things while we're there, and I'm looking over, actually seeing it happen. You know, it's like it's right there. Yeah.
It seems like this is the way it used to be. And I feel like Nashville used to have these. Did it?
Not
dance halls.
No, because
Yeah.
my
These
granddaddy told me that he met his wife like at one of those old school dance halls, but I don't.
Yeah.
I'm
A
sure
lot
they
of
had 'em.
churches did stuff like that, and,
Yeah, there
and
were
had
there were some
congregations,
clubs,
and
you know,
yeah.
there were some
That doesn't
clubs we'd
exist
go
at
to.
all here anymore, really.
No, and when I moved here in 1992, it wasn't strong. You know, if you went to Crossville, if you went to Lebanon, if you went to Gallatin, there weren't places to go dance. You know, there may be small bars or something, but it was just different. There wouldn't necessarily be, you know, as much live music, but it became a part of the identity, of the personality, you know, of Texas. And I take my daughter to the dance halls, you know, during the day. She's
I bet
still
Finley
young.
loves that.
And she loves it.
Yeah.
And I have great pictures of us. We have this thing now where my wife will take a picture of me and my daughter in front of all these historic dance halls when we go to them.
You'll keep those forever, and then she'll keep those forever. You know,
Exactly.
How special.
that's good. But talk a little bit about these artists that really never venture out of Texas and Oklahoma because they don't need to.
Yeah, they find
They,
so much
they do
success,
the
right?
whole their entire career is Texas, Oklahoma.
There are artists down there that sell thousands of tickets, ride around in brand new tour buses, and have never had a nationwide radio hit.
And the rest of us have never heard of them.
I think of the only other person who has a key to my house in this entire world, right? Kyle Park, who most people have never heard of, but he, for a long time, Kyle toured Texas and Oklahoma. Still does.
I went and saw him at Albert Dance Hall a few weeks ago. I know one artist that they're like, I don't care if I ever leave Texas. You know, I love playing in Texas, and they make a very, very good living. And, you know, this is a business, too, where just because you put a band together and start singing doesn't mean you're going to get a record deal out of Nashville or out of L.A. or New York if you're pop or rock or something like that. And so you can build a career down there, and even if major labels aren't looking at you, you can still have an amazing career down there. What also Texas shows is, you know, major record labels, instead of signing somebody that has nothing going on and putting a lot of money into bringing this new artist into the world, they can take a Parker McCollum that's already selling 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 tickets a night and having major regional success. And now a lot of these artists too, they go to California and they go up the Midwest and places like that especially because of the internet and streaming, you know, you can discover music.
They can't hide anymore.
They go on TikTok once and you're,
But they're based in Texas,
Yeah.
you know. But they do go tour other states as well. But a record label can go. You know, we lessen our risk if we sign somebody who already has something going on, already has a fan base, and so it really is a great proving ground for record labels to see if an artist has that X factor to grow an audience organically. Is their music engaging? Are they engaging? So they can see that happen, and it's absolutely incredible. And the music that comes out of that state, and it's not just because I'm from Texas. I mean, the history tells itself, you know, speaks for itself. And you look at the strength of the music scene there, especially the Texas Red Dirt, you know, country scene. It is so strong. And there's amazing artists still coming up. I see these, you know, like I was saying a few minutes ago, there's these young group of artists coming up now that I'm excited about.
Okay, tell me some of these names so we can start getting excited about them.
Sure. Cameron Albright.
Cameron Albright, write these down.
Okay, right.
You are getting inside.
Shelby Stone.
We will tag all these people in the thing. So we want to give everyone a boost in their career, right? Especially right now.
Shelby Stone, Race Ricketts, Hank Weaver. So there's, you know, Ashton Naylor. There's this great group that I see are going to be the next Parkers and Cody Johnsons and Randall Kings and these, you know, artists that get major record deals that, you know, start in Texas.
Yeah. That's I used to love doing the news because I always found out things first, and it's kind of like you with these artists, right? You get to find out all that stuff first, so
yeah,
it's kind of cool.
And another thing too, probably about 30 years ago, the state of Texas established a music office, the Texas Music Office, and about 10 years ago, a man named Brendan Anthony took over. He was a musician, toured with Pat Green for 15 years, amazing fiddle player. He took over the Texas Music Office, and there became his initiative to go to Nashville and LA and New York and campaign for major music industry to come to the state of Texas. And, you know, the state of Texas and the governors, you know, that's who the Texas Music Office reports to, is whoever's governor. They're very proactive in supporting the music scene and music culture down there. Yeah. Brendan developed a music-friendly program, music-friendly cities program. So they would go teach these cities on how to identify and foster and help grow and support local musicians. And there's over 70 cities now that have this certification, and they get together, you know, every quarter they get together in regions. Once a year they have a big conference, and so they're teaching these other cities that aren't major music hubs like Austin is how to help.
Right. You got to start somewhere, right? You got to put the infrastructure in place.
It's absolutely incredible. So I love that from the state level. And what's happened too is other states have seen what has happened, and the next thing you know, Brendan was meeting with governors of other states.
That's really cool.
So,
well, he's humble and kind.
I feel like we need to have a caveat with each thing you say, and Neil's really like,
this is no. Governor Abbott loves what he's done with the music scene down there, and he's recognized you several times for that. And it's kind of like they had the infrastructure in place, and Mitch came down and gave it a kick in the ass, right? Sort of, a little bit. Is that correct or no?
It was really I think it turned people's heads like, wow, BMI is opening an office in Austin. This is a big change. And I think if COVID wouldn't have happened, we would have seen more change quicker.
Okay.
But, you know, since then, CAA has a person down there. William Morris has a person down there. There's major management companies that have been building there. There's Y and Howe, 888, 10 Adams, Floating Leaf Entertainment. So this infrastructure keeps growing.
Yeah.
And then you have, you know, Big Loud here in Austin. I mean, in Nashville, you know, they have Morgan Wallen and Hardy, et cetera. They opened as a joint venture with John Randall and Miranda Lambert, Big Loud, Texas. And that's been open for about a year. Brendan Anthony left the Texas Music Office and is the vice president of the label. and they just announced Big Loud Texas Publishing. And so you have a major label and a major publishing company that now have an office, and they're wanting to foster and grow the creative community down there. And they've already signed 4 artists. Dylan Gossett's the first one. They're getting ready to start rolling out press releases on who the next 3-4 artists are. So we're seeing that shift.
Miranda's becoming a little powerhouse, right?
Yeah.
She's not just an artist anymore. She's really kind of getting the business into things.
Love her.
Yeah, she's terrific.
And you have John, Miranda, Brendan are all from Texas.
Yeah.
They understand what's going on down there. If I remember correctly, Miranda was playing clubs down there before, she was on Nashville Star. I could have that a little wrong. But, so you have Texans, then you have me, grew up in Texas.
Yeah.
We know the culture.
Yeah.
We know how to navigate down there. We know what the vibe is.
They'd like to be their own country.
So
That's all there is to it.
absolutely,
That's been a big advantage, too.
Is there kind of, I know there's like Texas, that mentality, if you're Texas over everyone, Texas against the world, is there which I respect because I feel the same, we love where we're from, but is there a Texas versus Nashville, like is there a rivalry, or it's like we're better than the other, we're the OGs?
Interesting, yeah.
Or is it kind of like we help each other?
There used to be,
Yeah.
there was 20, 25 years ago, there was don't go to Nashville mentality. We're going to do it our own way.
Right,
here. And
like we're scrappy.
they were very, there was some artists that were very vocal about it, but that's changed.
So
I think
there's
that
a
was-
camaraderie.
Yeah, for sure.
It's fascinating that the dance halls down there and the entire scene and the places, establishments in Austin, and I know that there's several down there that just have wonderful artists in these beautiful palaces, especially down in Austin. Like, if I go to Austin, what are the 5 places I need to go watch music?
So
I've never been to Austin.
So,
Isn't that
So here we
awful?
no, you need
go
to
ahead.
come visit. Saxon Pub.
Saxon Pub,
It is
number
a
one.
listening room, a true listening room. It is like the Bluebird of Austin. Joe Abels, they've been in business over 30 years. Joe became a dear friend. We have a monthly BMI showcase there, songwriter round. Joe officiated my wedding. So, and what he's done.
You
there.
better mention him first.
Yep. Then you have Broken Spoke.
Yep,
Goes
Broken
back
Spoke
to
is
the 1960s.
Awesome.
And they want bands in there that people want to dance to. And they have a rich history of Ernest Tubb and Bob Wills and et cetera, et cetera. Garth Brooks playing, at Broken Spoke. And George Strait played there, back in the day before he had a major record deal.
There are pictures of like George, a young George on Green Hall's wall, like when he.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Is
like
green, is that the one you wore the shirt the other day?
Yeah, it looks like Gruen.
Yeah,
So you
okay,
automatically
okay.
know someone from Texas when they say Green. Oh, you go to Green Hall. You know. And, what's Gruen? Is that the guitar place? No.
Yeah, it's in the city of New Braunfels.
All right. So
And-
let's go back to your list.
So there's Antone's. Antone's legendary, blues and Cajun, is kind of their thing. Mainly, more blues, and then they had Cajun with, Clifton Chenier and people like that coming in. So you have, Antone's. You have kind of what you're in the mood for. You go to different clubs. There's Continental Club, which they've been open since the early 80s, and they have a location in Houston as well. And, used to be able to go see Stevie Ray Vaughan at Continental Club.
Unbelievable.
You go see Stevie.
There's a statue of him down there. It's pretty amazing.
But, imagine you're going to visit the Hill Country, go to Austin 1978, 79, and you can go to Green Hall, or you can go to Lukenbach, or you can go to Broken Spoke and see George Strait on stage playing. Cheatham Street Warehouse. George Strait did his very first gig there. It's in San Marcos, big college town. And they were all going to college there, he and the band. And Stevie Ray Vaughan played there. Randy Rogers got started there. Todd Snyder got started there. So that's what you see when you have these places. Parker McCollum started at Saxon Pub, sitting on a bar stool on
You're
Sunday
kidding
nights.
me. That's
so cool.
absolutely amazing. What makes Austin a little bit different than Nashville is that I would go down and visit Mitch, and we would get on our bikes and we just ride around the city. And we were like kids. You know how you used to throw your bike down the front yard of the house you were playing at that day? We'd throw our bike down in front of the establishment we were going to that day, and then we'd get on our bike and ride to the next one, and over and over. That's what's different about Austin. Has a more casual feel than Nashville does when it comes to that scene.
Yeah. And Nashville's very music industry and tourist focused, and I love it. You know, they're just two different personalities of music cities.
Yeah, they say Austin's weird and Nashville's...
Yeah, keep Austin weird, you know, that slogan, and, you know, the live music capital of the world and such. But, you know, it's always...
There's more competition between the cities of Nashville and Austin than there are the artists of Nashville and Austin, right?
But Austin's always been a DIY, you know, music community. And out of that has been, you know, a lot of success stories. And but it all goes back to the community is there to support. The venues are there. The people go there. You know, the Armadillo World headquarters in the late 70s, that's where the cowboys and hippies all hung out. You know, the cowboys were drinking Lone Star, and the hippies were smoking weed, and they all watched Charlie Daniels and Carlos Santana and Gary P. Nunn and Jerry Jeff Walker and all that. It was, you know, a legendary place. Yeah. And, you know, Willie Nelson left Nashville, went back to Texas, and he called Waylon Jennings. And he goes, "You got to come down here and see what's going on at Armadillo World headquarters." And, you know, that was a real big...
I always picture Waylon and Willie in their tube socks running up and down Music Row when they decided to get in shape, right? Yeah. I mean, those characters, we don't have characters like that anymore, but we still have characters. We have the Ray Wileys of the world. We have those guys are still out there that kind of, you know, just different drum. They dance to a different beat. Yeah.
Ray Wiley's a great example of, you know, there are artists in Texas that may not have had national radio success, but they have heavily influenced. You know, Ray Wiley is a big influence for Eric Church, and they co-wrote "Desperate Man" together. You know, Eric's national radio hit. You know, so there's this respect for the, you know, the older artists there.
So I threw you off. So Willie calls Waylon and says, "You got to come down and check out Armadillo World headquarters." Go on.
And it just became this place to go. And the coolest bands were playing there. Bruce Springsteen played down there. And, you know, it's like they heard about the Armadillo World headquarters and like, we got to go play this place. It was an old Quonset hut, and then had a beer garden outside. And
an old what hut?
Quonset hut.
Those are old military buildings that are kind of shaped like just a little dome building.
Yeah, it's like a rainbow.
And that's the Armadillo.
Yeah, that was Armadillo World headquarters. Yeah.
And this place is still in existence?
No. They closed. I think their last show was New Year's Eve, 1979, or New Year's Eve, 1980, somewhere around there.
Back.
Yeah.
Well, the building's gone.
You can't.
An office
once
building,
the Quonset hut shuts down, you pack them up and they go.
Yeah. It had been a National Guard armory, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And, you know, so there's, you know, this goes back to the culture and wanting to support live music and artists that are like, we're just going to do it.
Yeah.
We don't care if a record label comes along. If they do, great. But we're just going to do it and build our audience and make the music we want to make.
Yeah.
Not be told what to make.
Well, I respect the hell out of that.
Yeah. It's very. Now I want you to expand out from Austin, because when he picks me up, it's like we have an itinerary and we got to be here, there. But when you head out, like if you ever get a chance to like walk around Luckenbach, Texas, it's such a cool little spot.
Is it Luckenbach?
Luckenbach, Texas. It's
I've never. I mean, the only place in Texas I've been is South Padre Island.
Yeah.
And that was
spring break
in college. So I need to come. I clearly need to come visit.
You need to come visit. Bring Justin and Andy down.
Yeah.
And, you know, the girls can play together.
Andy and Finley can play.
Yeah, they can. You know, but there's.
But when you so we go to Luckenbach, we go to the springs, the well,
Barton Springs.
Barton Springs, yeah. What are some of those spots we visited before that? They're just so Texas, right? You know, watch out for the snakes where we're going.
Wait, about legitimately.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she loves snakes.
I'm never coming there.
Yeah. Well, on my property, I have snakes, tarantulas, scorpions, and centipedes that are black and have an orange head and an orange tail that are about 6 to 9 inches long.
Those
demons
freak me out.
So legitimate demons is what I'm hearing.
Oh yeah. So whenever you whenever you, like, there's a rock that you want to move, you kind of slowly pull it back and you look under.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah. I've pulled, like, go at the back of our property and get some rocks for landscaping in the front yard or something, and there's been a black scorpion or a tarantula underneath it.
Absolutely not.
They're around here too. Don't think we're scot-free, okay? Just because you don't go outside.
I go outside.
Okay, to a pool.
And landscaped grass.
You talk about, this is like what feels like Texas. Yeah. So,
and we go raft, and we do you have to go.
The river.
You have to float the river.
I've seen pictures of y'all doing that.
Yeah.
It looks so fun.
So a couple of weeks ago, I was in an event, and I met the lead singer of the 80s pop band Wang Chung. He lives in Austin.
Do you know
now.
Wang Chung?
No, I don't.
Everybody have fun tonight?
Oh, yes.
Come on.
Yes.
So we talked for a little bit, and, he lives in Austin now and still has his house in England. So a few miles down the road from the event is a legendary bar in the hill country called Devil's Backbone Tavern.
Oh, I've heard all about, he talked about it on the news.
Yeah, that's right.
That
was yep.
So Buddy Man and I decided to stop by the Backbone for a few minutes. It's 5 minutes from my house. And we walk in, and out of the dance hall area, which is interesting because Wang Chung had another big hit called Dance Hall Days.
Yes.
And he comes walking out of the dance hall with his wife, and he's like, "Hey, you're here." We start talking again. And he looks around, and he goes, "This is the most Texas place I've ever been." And he said it with excitement. He's like,
yeah.
He absolutely loved it. Irv Woolsey used to go to the Devil's Backbone Tavern. Todd Snyder played there and has a song about it. And
Irv told me the story about how he was at the Backbone one day, and a guy walked in with his hunting rifle, pulled it up, and shot the deer head that's above the fireplace at the end, and turned around and told everyone in the bar, "I haven't hit a thing all day," and that was the only thing I could hit. And there's still, and so
the bullet hole's still there.
Irv tells me the story, and that next time I'm there with Mitch, I go over there, and sure enough,
the bullet
hole is there. Irv, rest in peace, Irv. What a wonderful human being, Irv.
Well,
what a way to be remembered.
Yeah,
that's a story.
Irv grew up in Wimberley, and the Wimberley Cafe. There's this big picture in black and white of all these kids sitting on a
fence,
a split rail fence, and it has name tags under each. And there's Irvine Woolsey, David Woolsey, and it's Irv and his family. And Irv told me he drank his very first beer at Devil's Backbone Tavern.
I can totally see that. I can totally see that.
So fun. I love hearing these stories. I need to come and visit and hear and see all these places in person.
You're an encyclopedia of country music and people behind country music, and just not just country music, music of all. Does it bother you that we kind of lose some of that history, that it kind of goes away? Do you think the younger artists appreciate as much, or I don't know. I'm trying to formulate a question here about we're losing a lot of our history in country music that you have stored in your brain, and how do you feel about that?
I think that the larger the genre has gotten, it has gotten more corporate, and it doesn't have as much of a family and history feel as it used to, but there's still that camaraderie in country music.
Yeah.
It's just bigger, and when things get bigger, it's, the culture changes a little bit.
Sure.
But there's still respect for the Grand Ole Opry. There's still respect, for the history and the history of Nashville and such. I see that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to ask about what happened with Taylor Swift buying back all her copies. Do you have an opinion on that? Like, how does that? No, you have no.
No, I mean she wanted her music back and she got it.
Yeah.
Is your world at all entrenched in that? I mean,
no, that's the sound recordings.
Okay.
So that's that's owned by the record label. And that's the actual recording of her singing the song. So
your business has nothing to do with anything on that side.
Not sound recordings, no.
But
just the songwriting royalties.
And I think a lot of people, and I just lost my camera, but I think a lot of people don't understand exactly what a company like BMI does. But,
I didn't until you.
And I think and your job is even harder than it's ever been. I mean, there were only a few sources playing music not too long ago. Now it's everywhere. And so talk about what you do for artists on that end, because it's such a fragmented thing now.
Well, and what happens, before it was basically radio and TV. and this is federal copyright law. We didn't make this up. Any venues, bars, restaurants, radio stations, TV stations that play music, they are required by federal law to pay a licensing fee. And we make sure they're compliant. We collect those royalties and we distribute them to our songwriters. So we're just kind of the in between.
Mm-hmm.
Well, someone's got to do it, or else those royalties won't
never
be
get
paid.
Right?
Right, because songwriters can't go out and collect their own performance royalties. So the internet changed the game big time.
Yeah.
So streaming numbers are huge. They keep growing. New things pop up. Mm-hmm. TikTok was a huge one.
Yeah.
Instagram adding music was a big one. Peloton coming out to market and having music available. So, BMI has an entire department that is licensing, and it's a very large department, and they are very proactive to identify these new entities, these new things that are popping up.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily know what they're going to be. And it's like, oh, there's this new thing, TikTok. Well, they need to be licensed.
Absolutely. And it's only fair. It's hard enough in the world we live in for a songwriter to make a living anymore. So you're vital in the whole food chain of music.
For sure, especially now that the majority of consumption is streaming.
Yeah.
So what percentage do songwriters get of, say, if I listen to a song on TikTok?
I am not sure what the royalty rates are.
Yeah.
And you can go Google what does a Spotify stream pay, and you get some specific number, but it varies. It's like, is it a student plan? Is it a family plan? Is it an ad-based
my gosh.
user? Is it subscription, single user based? And so I stay in my lane and just work with the songwriters and find
rightfully
talent.
so.
That's
it can
crazy.
get complicated.
It's so complicated.
It is very complicated there. Yeah. So,
but BMI does an incredibly good job of making sure all these revenue streams are being collected and distributed to the songwriters.
So if you're a songwriter, you want to be with BMI?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Since I joined them 6 years ago, revenue keeps going up. Yeah. And, we're...
which means revenue artists and our songwriters keeps going up.
BMI's collecting more, which means more is distributed to the songwriters.
Yeah.
And so the songwriters are making, more money, that's wonderful. That's what they want to do. And that's what we want to happen for them.
Wow. This is so fascinating. I don't know that it's such a foreign world to me.
It really is, and it's hard. And think about an artist, like you're really good in your small hometown and you can play guitar and you wrote a few songs, and then you come to this city or Austin or anywhere and you have to figure out the ropes. And I think you have a lot of fun when you meet these young kids, and they are kids, and you kind of steer them through the jungle that is the music business and get them. You can spend a whole career trying to figure out which way to go.
Especially on the song side, it's one thing to go, hey, our band's going to play, Continental Club Saturday night, and, it's 200 capacity, and it's $10 a ticket, it's $2,000, and we split it with the venue, whatever that is, and we divide it up in the band. That's easy math. We buy a T-shirt for $6-7, we sell it for $20-25. You know what your profit is. The revenue streams of songwriting can be complicated.
Yeah.
Because outside of BMI, there's a mechanical licensing collective that is, if you buy a song on iTunes for $1.29, there's a royalty that goes to the songwriters and publishers, and that's collected by the MLC. If you have a song on vinyl or CD or any physical product, and a lot of that physical product is coming back, then there's 12 cents for each album sold for each song on each album, and that's done by the Harry Fox agency. So there's all these different silos where songwriters have revenue, and it can be complicated. And one thing I want these artists to understand, and I work with all genres as well.
He does.
There's a big rap
Just
and hip hop scene. And
go
Austin,
follow
indie
Mitch's
rock.
Instagram, Mitch lowercase dash Ballard, 2 L's.
Underscore,
lowercase, whatever, underscore. I don't know what it is, but and you just scroll through it, and it's basically who's who of a cornucopia of music.
Yeah,
not just country.
And because we represent songwriters. It doesn't matter what genre they are. We also have composers like John Williams, who wrote the music to Jaws and Indiana Jones and Harry Potter and Close Encounters and Star Wars. And so when you're hearing the Star Wars theme, that's a composition by John Williams, and there's a royalty that we collect and distribute to him. But I really stress with these artists that are getting started, I really explain the revenue stream of songwriting to them so they hopefully can understand it better and not miss out on any money.
Yeah. Do you know what I was just thinking about? Most of us think like our dads and our moms, they don't know anything. They don't know anything about new music, what's cool and what's hip. You're one of the rare instances of dads where Finley's gonna be like, no, my dad told me about this band or this artist. Right. So they're gonna be cool.
Finley has the experiences that she's had already, and she's not even 3 years old. Her first show that she ever went to was Scotty Alexander opening up for Kevin Fowler. She was 4 weeks old, got her diaper changed on Kevin's bus.
Oh my God.
And Kevin lives close to us, so he's seen her grow up, and she loves Kevin. And the first time she went to ACL Fest, she was about 6-7 weeks old.
She got those earphones, headphones.
Came in backstage, put her in a, there's not really there's multiple stages there, but they came in the crew entrance, got her on a golf cart, and took her on a golf cart to the BMI backstage, and have videos of it. And, she's been to a lot of shows. We went to a Robert Earl Keen thing.
Wow.
In Bandera, and here she is getting a picture with Robert Earl Keen, and one of these days he's going to look back and go, I hope, and looks back and goes, wow.
Maybe she'll be a songwriter. Maybe she'll be an artist.
Yeah, maybe.
She got some of it in her. Her mom is very creative, and artist. Kalia is wonderful, and so are you. So it's there.
Yeah, I've already see
She used to come over when you were playing guitar on the couch, and she would start strumming at it. Remember, this was when she first started moving.
She's making up songs now. I bought her a little 3-string guitar, and she'll start picking on it and just saying phrases, singing phrases along with it. I'm like,
oh my gosh, that's adorable.
Oh, so speaking of
music bug, music gene,
do you have the bug to get back into writing? We're going to wrap up here in a second because you have meetings. It's CMA week. Yep. You're busy. Yeah. Do you miss writing? Do you get back into it all? Do you dabble with it at all? Have you got anything going?
Yeah, I have gotten back into writing. And it's interesting you talk about the Jeannie Seeley cut earlier. I tell these young songwriters that song was 20 years old when she cut it. And
part of your catalog of that old notebook that you guard with your life.
That's it. And I've written with a couple of artists down in Austin. I don't have a lot of time for it.
Right.
But there was a couple that asked, if I would write with them, and I did. And wrote a Western swing song with Catherine Legender. She had this idea of she'd smoked weed with Ray Benson one day, and she wrote down this idea the day I smoked a J with Ray. And we wrote it, recorded it. Ray ended up being a guest on it. Yeah. So that was really cool.
So the guy they wrote the song about comes and is a guest on the song.
Yeah.
That's really so cool.
And then in June, there's a very well-known Tejano artist, Sonny Salceda. He is 3-time Tejano Entertainer of the Year. And he's recorded a song of mine that's 20 years old. Mm-hmm. He said, he goes, give me something. He goes, you were writing songs in the 90s. Give me some 90s sounding stuff. And he cut a song called Faster Than the Speed of Love that's coming out in a few weeks.
Well, can't wait to hear it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, actually. And I know he has a song that's #1 somewhere in him that he's going to release sometime. And I know that's happening. So I would, 100%. But
maybe Finley will help you write it.
There you go. Oh,
I wanted to talk about all the people we met when we first got here. I wanted to talk about some of our fun stories that we've had, adventures that we've done.
Did something fun.
And that was kind of a back to square one moment. I posted about that this morning. It was running into Big Kenny. Little quiz for you, Nikki.
Okay,
a little quiz, okay? Who gave Big Kenny his name?
I have no idea, Neil.
You have no idea?
No.
All right, I'm going to give you one guess.
Mitch Ballard.
I'm proud of you. You literally, I walked you up to the cliff and you jumped, and you gave. Well, you called him some.
Yeah, and about.
You can say it on a podcast if you want, but I know you don't.
It's about 6-8 months ago. It was about 9:00 at night. And my phone just starts lighting up, text message after text message, and I opened up the first one. It said Big Kenny is on Clint Black's show on the Circle Network, and just said that you're the guy that gave him the name Big Kenny.
Oh, I love
Which was funny. It's like everybody was like, my wife's like, what's wrong? Because that's
right.
When that happens,
when you're 56 years old, and and you know, and your phone starts lighting up late at night. You're like, all right, is everybody okay?
Yeah.
There were a couple words in between Big and Kenny that we're leaving out here, but the shortened version is Big Kenny. But running into him, it's so interesting looking back at all the friends that we had running around town that day and where they've gone with their lives. And we'll do that sometime, Mitch. But it's CMA week, and I'm looking at my watch because I got to get you down to go do all your meetings and stuff like that. But look, you're my best friend in the entire universe. And the fact that I met you when I did at this point, how life turned out, right? Just great. And Mitch and I have this story that, you know, one day we are going to be two old men. We are going to be sitting on 5-gallon Home Depot buckets outside our old man home with a radio in one of them and a cooler in the other. And we're just going to sit there and drink beer and smoke cigarettes on our Home Depot orange buckets. That's our dream.
We could all be so lucky.
The first time Neil came to Austin was Memorial Weekend 2019. And
I remember this.
Yeah, I'd only been there a few months. And we took the bikes out and we're riding around. We were on South Lamar. Actually, we were in the car when this happened. We were on South Lamar, and there was these 3 dudes. Sitting in front of an old house, smoking cigarettes, drinking beers, sitting on 5-gallon Home Depot buckets, and we're like, that's going to be us.
That's going to be it. And that's where we're going to leave it. Thanks,
because I think if we kept talking, I would have gotten Mitch to tell me some dirt on you, some great old Neil stories.
Well, he's got all the dirt on me you could possibly.
I know.
He's got more dirt on me than I can even remember.
And likewise.
And likewise.
He has the same on me. But thank you both. I mean, this is incredible. I'm glad you're doing this podcast, and I listened to it down in Texas, and I'm excited for future
guests.
He's
our 15th listener.
He is our 15th. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, we tracked him down. That's why. Good luck with everything with BMI in the future, and we appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Love you, my man.